Hello, hi there again. I'm now told that this should be going on live. And if anyone could be so kind to just put a little emoji in Slack, I would really appreciate that, if anyone is listening. Otherwise, I will just go on as nothing happens. All right, so the rest, or the majority at least, of the rest of this lecture will be about Scrum in one way or another. And Scrum in a nutshell is basically one of the agile processes that have been created, and one that has a focus on delivering highest business value in the shortest time, blah, 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 and so on. But the idea is, as it says here, to, like any agile approach, to have a rapid and repeatedly inspected working software. And this is everything from 2 weeks to about a month of working time. And that's one of the ideas in agile, to have a rather short span of time in which to produce things. So every this time you will be able to see real working software and decide whether the project should continue or if there is something that we need to do to enhance this for each sprint. Businesses set the priorities, but we have self-organized teams that work on delivering this, in the best possible way. And we'll just have to check. And Agile has then become one of the most known, as you've seen, the most widely used of these different Agile approaches. So Scrum is used by almost everyone, as can be seen in this list. Microsoft, Yahoo, Google, Electronic Arts, and so on. So it's something that's been used by quite a number of high-profile companies. And this shows that this is actually something that is workable, something that's actually usable by a lot of people, a lot of companies. And what are they doing with it? Well, almost anything. As we said in the beginning, Scrum or Agile approaches is one of the best ways to set up and work with a software that's developed for human beings. So if you want to go to Mars, then perhaps not the best way. However, for almost anything else. So all types of basically commercial software that we need to produce, in-house or contract development, also for fixed price projects, which might seem like a contradiction in term, but then you have to set the rules more thoroughly. For financial applications, because humans are going to use these financial applications. Well, you see everything else. What's cool perhaps is that even video games, so latest shoot 'em up, could be produced using a Scrum or Scrum-like methodology. Websites, mobile phone software on mobile phones, so on and so forth. Some of the largest, but also some of the smallest applications you've probably seen have been created using a Scrum methodology. And I think this is perhaps one of the most important slides, namely to try to show you how Scrum works organically towards a specific goal. So we have our goal, our vision, but instead of, as the traditional approaches, go straight, or rather here, straight to the final product, Scrum works in a manner where it feels the way forward towards the real final product. And as you can see in this one, it might take a bit of time, might take a little bit of finding out what it is we want, but in the end we will come to a much better place, a much better product than with the traditional way of doing it. So enough of the fluff around Scrum. I know most of you, if not all of you, are fairly familiar with Scrum, but just to recap, we'll go through a number of slides and a number of things to talk about around Scrum as well. So it's not an acronym, it's a sports term in rugby, and I've had to look this up because I know next to nothing about sports in general, and when it comes to rugby, I'm even worse. So it means tries to go to the distance as a unit, passing the ball back and forth. Yeah. It was developed by, as you can see, a number of guys, Ken, Jeff and John, and Jeff again. And this was developed in the 1990s, but it took some time because, as we've seen in a previous slide, these are really different from what we've expected previously. So it took a lot of time to early 2000 before this really caught on, because there was a lot of people having a lot of things that they thought were negative, and as we've seen, it's not the way we usually do things. And if you want to know more, and we are going to go through Scrum of course, but if you want to know more from the source, there's a great Scrum guide, the Scrum guide by Schwaber and Sutherland, which is available on this URL over there, where you can get all the facts and all the updates and so on directly from the source. And characteristics for Scrum: self-organizing teams, meaning that you work together to solve this task. So we will in this course give you a little bit of help in organizing the teams themselves, but in real life the idea is that we should have all of the knowledge available, and we organize the team so that we can figure out a way to create the software that we need. This means that we have a collective responsibility, that we feel for the project or the product or the thing that we are creating, which is important because traditionally it could have been the way that we have, for example, a database expert who comes into a project just during the time where the database is designed, and then he or she leaves the project again. And the same for UI and all the other stuff's available when you do some projects. Then that means that you don't have a feel for the product. And here we want to have collective responsibility, and we want you to really feel that this is one of my projects. This is for me, and I'm responsible for this. Therefore, I will like to try to do my best in order to do this. Product progresses in a series of 2 to 4 week sprints, meaning that we have sprints of a predefined length. In the case of the course, they will be 1 week. In the case of the real life, there will probably be not less than 2 weeks, but probably not more than 4 weeks, as that's kind of a nice time to create something of value that we could show. And the idea is to work in sprints so that we can have communication with the client and the product owner and so on, and get feedback on the stuff that we are doing. And requirements are captured as items in a list in a product backlog, and from this we pick the ones that we are able to do in a specific sprint, and then we just work with that. Apart from that, there are no specific engineering practices prescribed, so we can go about any way we like to find out the requirements. We can use any kind of tools or any kind of thinking when it comes to producing the code and so on. And that's also kind of nice in this course, as you yourselves in your teams are free to find out any kind of technology tools and so on that you want to use. Images are nice. This one shows the Scrum framework, all the different parts, where we have the product backlog items furthest away, and there we have a product owner who is part of defining these items, and then we have the development team with all their let's see, laptops, plans for a sprint, plans for taking a number of these items into the sprint backlog, and from the sprint backlog they start this sprint, which is this where we work for a maximum, as it says, of 1 month, 2 to 4 weeks. Each day we have daily scrums, and each sprint we have a look at what we might refine in the product backlog. But we do all the usual understanding the requirements, to designing, implementing, and so on during the sprint. And when that's done, we show the working increment that we have in a sprint review and a sprint retrospective, different meetings, where we show what we've done so far, and we get a go on moving forward or not, and defining what we have so far done as good or bad. And the most important part is probably the sprint itself. So this again is basically the same image, but with all the fluff removed, where we can see that we have the product backlog going to sprint backlog, working in a sprint with 24 hours, but you are not really, we will not have you work all 24 hours in a day. And then the outcome is a working increment of the software. That's basically it. But in order to get there, to understand the different parts, we are going to look at the roles, ceremonies, and artifacts of Scrum, where we have the product owner, the Scrum Master, and the team as roles, and the ceremonies are sprint planning, review, retrospective, and daily Scrum. Artifacts, the backlog, both for the product and for the sprint, and a burn down chart if we like. And this is the meat of the rest of the lecture, basically, where we're going to go through all of these different parts. The product owner, in contrast to traditional development, is really involved in the project. And that might be a problem, not a problem per se, but rather that the customer, at least previously, didn't set off enough time to actually be involved in the project. But nowadays it's really important that when we do a Scrum project that we actually involve the product owner as well, as it's this person or these persons perhaps that are the ones who are going to say, well, we are on the right track, we are doing the right thing, and so on. Or sometimes they get involved too much and have way too much to say, and that might be a problem as well. What the product owner does, which will be Lars in this case, in this course, is to define the features of the product, and we will be, and it is commonly used to work with user stories, and we're going to look at user stories later on. The product owner decides on a release date and a content. The return of investment, prioritize features, which is important because we will have, when we create the product backlog, we will have a lot of things to do, and it's a product owner who decides, within reason, of course, what's going to be implemented. And it might be that the case that the product owner says that, well, I want this feature, and I want it done as early as possible. And then the team says, well, that's okay, but in order to do that, we also need to take this and this and this user story. And then he says, fine, that's okay. It's also the product owner who adjusts features for every iteration, because it might be that the requirements are not fully understood. That's one of the basic ideas of working like this, to know that the requirements aren't there to begin with. We have to work with them, and we need to find a way to understand it. That's why we, instead of going dead ahead to the final product, we go like this, as the picture before. In the end, it's the product owner who decides whether this work should be accepted or rejected, as it is a product owner who has most likely formally requested this piece of software. That's a product owner. And inside of the project, we have what's called a Scrum Master, who is not a project manager. However, it is important for the Scrum Master to see to that all the values and practices of Scrum are used, and how they are used, and that everyone knows what to do and so on. So it's a little bit kind of like a project manager, but then again not. And one of the things that we really try to point at here is that the Scrum Master is much more of a coach than a manager. It's not the idea to be a boss, to manage all the resources as such, but rather to help this team to get to where they need to be. And one of the things is to remove all the barriers, and that could be all the upper management. Again, I know for a fact when I was working as a Scrum Master that a lot of time went into trying to tell the boss, who just wanted, he wanted to know way too much, just to lay off, take it easy, we'll handle this, we'll handle you separately, was kind of the idea most of the time. So that the team can focus on what he or she wants. The problem here is actually that everyone nowadays has a number of direct messaging clients. In my days we used Skype as a company, which meant that even if I told the management to step away, they send messages directly to the people inside of the project just to see what's happening. And it's not that we didn't want the manager to know what's happening, because that's quite okay. He got loads of insight into the project, but he's not supposed to be picking at all the details all the time. The Scrum Master sees to that the team is fully functional and productive, and that means assessing risks within the team, see to that people are working together nicely and that we don't have people that we know cannot work together. And if they need to work together, find out an environment where they can actually do things nicely. And this hangs very close to enabling close cooperation across all roles and functions. We need to work as a group, and the Scrum Master is part of the group. He's not managing the group. He's actually rather part of this group. Shields the team from external interference, as I said previously, and also the boring thing, go to meetings. And that's part of shielding the team off from all the other things. The team itself is somewhere around 5 to 9 people. We can have larger and we can have smaller groups, but if we position ourselves around 5 to 9 people, that has been by experience seen as the optimum. It depends, of course, a little bit on exactly what you're going to develop. And there might be that we need help from outside sources as well. But imagine, for example, a large game that you want to develop, and you need graphical designers for all the different thingies in the game. They can be seen perhaps as something outside of the group instead of being in the team of 5 to 9 who are actually pushing the entire project forward. However, when we create these teams, they should be cross-functional, meaning that everyone should, or rather we should have programmers, testers, UX designers and so on, and everyone should have a working knowledge on all the different things. And this is important because we want to create teams where we are not relying on a single person for a specific task. There might be someone who is better at designing databases, for example, and hey, cool, let that person be able to work with a database. But that person should also be able to do tests, for example, or do some other programming, or be there with the UI team and so on. So you should be able to work as a whole. And by doing that, you also find yourself closer to the project and the product, and see it as one as yours, so to say. Yeah. The team selects the work for the sprint, self-organizing, as I said. You do what you do best by prepared to do almost anything. And membership should only change between sprints, and preferably not at all. So everyone should be involved all the time. The team selects the user stories from the product backlog that they can commit to completing. And we will look more into the user stories in just a little bit. And this is part of sprint planning, where we decide what we can actually do. We can do this together with the product manager as well, but we are the ones who decide. And the sprint backlog is created from the stories that we've selected. And we try to find an estimate, and we'll look more into that later on. High-level design is also considered. So something like this. Looking at the sprint planning, we have the team capacity, the product backlog, business conditions, current product, technology, and so on. Everything I've said so far is input to the planning meeting, where we prioritize, analyze, and evaluate from the backlog, product backlog, and decide how much we can achieve during this sprint. And we estimate how much that will entail for us. And the outcome is the sprint backlog. So important here is a sprint. As we probably understood by now, a sprint is this 2 to 4 week heavy work period that we have in the project. And the important thing here when we plan for a sprint is that we want to have sustainable speed, meaning that we want to know that we can commit to work that we can get done during this time period. It says here 8 hours meeting at the start and the end. We will not have that long in this course, but the idea is that we put a lot of effort in the beginning to plan the sprint so we know what to do, and also have review and retrospect afterwards so that we catch all the things that we've done. And no changes to this commitment can be done during the sprint, meaning that we decide in the planning what to do, we commit to doing this, and we do not change that. And that's because we want a tolerable, well-working, well-defined thing to work with for these 2 to 4 weeks. Okay? So no changes to what we do. We do that as good as we possibly can. It might be in a course or in the beginning or the end of a project that you have difficulties in defining exactly what sustainable speed is for your product, your velocity in the project. However, with experience, this will become easier. What else? Well, more ceremonies, namely the daily Scrum, which is one of the important things in Scrum. We can say that the overall idea of working in a sprint and creating a beautiful or functional artifact in the end is one of the key factors. The daily Scrum is another, which I really encourage you to do each day, because just as we are working with short feedback loops with the customer, it is likewise important to work with short feedback loops within the group. And one might think that, well, we are talking all the time, we have our Discord over there, and we meet on Slack and blah 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 and so on, but hey, it's really important. So yeah, you should have really have these daily scrums, I should say. As the name implies, it's daily, and with daily it's of course working days. 15 minutes only, standing up. It's not for problem solving, it's for just saying how things are. We'll come to that. The whole world is invited, so anyone should be able to attend, but only the team and the Scrum Master, who is part of the team, should talk. And the basic idea here is to avoid unnecessary meetings. And that's why we say the daily Scrum and not the daily Scrum meeting, which I saw in the slide that I have actually said somewhere. But the idea is that this is not a meeting per se. It's a time where we very rapidly go through all the things that we are going to do. Or rather, there will be a few questions, but it's a short meeting, and it's standing up, because if you stand up, you feel comfortable for about 50 minutes, and then it starts to be rather boring. Also, no hot or cold beverages while doing the daily Scrum. So no coffee, no Coke, no nothing at all to drink while having these meetings, because if you do, you tend to drift off and do other things that you should. And there are 3 questions that each piece per blah. Let's take that again. There are 3 questions that each person should answer, and they get tweaked a little bit from time to time, but basically they are, what did you do yesterday, what are you going to do today, and is there anything in the way for you to do that today? So yesterday, today, and is there anything that makes it more or less impossible to do that? So again, if we are 9 people in the group, 15 minutes will be a stretch, but we really need to keep it that way, and therefore we need to answer this quickly. And why? Well, perhaps because if we look at what we did yesterday, and we answer truthfully, of course, we can see what kind of progress we've done, and if there's something we are going to do today, everyone knows that, well, it's Kalle who is working with that, or whatever it might be. And also if there's anything in the way, like someone in the family has gotten corona, or we know that there will be a server downtown time later on this afternoon, or whatever it might be. And the basic idea here is that if you, for a few of these daily scrums, say, well, I was supposed to be doing this, but I didn't manage to finish it off, then we have these short feedback loops, and the rest of the team can see, well, okay, this task that you're doing might be more problematic than we thought it would be, so let's help you out in doing this. We need to rethink. Instead of waiting 3 or 4 weeks, or as is normal, to have a meeting each Friday where you say, well, what have you done? And it's been so long, so everyone just wants to go home, and they say, well, I'm fine. But if you do this 15 minutes each day, and you have to say, well, I'm not quite finished, then it's easier to chip in and help out. Remember though that this is not a trial. It's not that you're trying to find a scapegoat for anything. It's about finding out how to help as soon as possible. And the sooner we know that there is a problem, the easier it is to fix it. So keep it short and simple. And if there is someone in the group who tends to go on for long and be making this impossible to keep in 15 minutes, create some sort of fine. If you work close by, that could be money somewhere put. If you're working far from each other, you'll have to find something else. But try to find some way of punishing, so to say, the one who cannot do this in the 15 minutes allocated. And that's 15 minutes for each and every one. For the entire group. So not each and every one, but rather for the entire group. So 15 minutes is really short time. All right, then we have the sprint review, which is at the end of the sprint, and it's basically the team presenting what it accomplished during the sprint. This is a demo of what you've done. In our case, you're going to show to Lars what you've done. No slides, minimum of preparation time, but that doesn't mean you should come unprepared. You have something to show. See to that you show that in the most efficient way possible. Instead of just saying, well, we've done this and this and this and this, try to use your user stories that you have. So, in order to do blah, 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 we have implemented blah, 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 and you show that as a demo. The whole team participates. We can invite the world, and that, of course, doesn't mean anyone, but the idea here is that upper management, for example, they are welcome as well. This makes it fairly easy to find, again, with these short feedback loops, to find problems early. After that, we have a sprint retrospective where we discuss what is and what is not working. And this is done after each sprint. The whole team participates, possibly with customers and others. And the idea here is to, spelling mistake, discuss what the team would like to start doing, stop doing, and continue doing. So what are the things that we are going to do next? What should we stop doing? Things that are not working. Kalle and Palle cannot work together, for example. And what we should just continue working. We have a nice coffee machine that's actually working now. Let's hope it continues working. And at first glance, the review and retrospective look very, very similar. But the difference is that the review is a more informal meeting, while the retrospective is more formal, and the review focuses on what is built, while the retrospect on how it is built. So that's much more important for the team itself, whereas the review is centered more around the project, or rather the product that we are creating. Again, for the review, an opportunity for stakeholders to provide feedback, which we want. And the retrospective is, again, not to find scapegoats on why things aren't working, but rather to be constructive and finding better ways of moving forward. The next on our list that we are going to look at are the artifacts. So what we've looked at up until now, first the roles, the Scrum Master, Product Owner, and so on, and then the ceremonies like the daily Scrum and review and retrospective, and now we are on the last part, which contains the artifacts. An artifact is something that we create. So, for example, the product backlog. And the product backlog is the requirements in the Scrum world. So basically we pack requirements on a quite high level inside of these, and we can have them on even high levels if we like, but the product backlog are most often the user stories listed that we want this application to provide for us. And these are prioritized by the product owner in the specific order they want to see it, and we as a team might need to change that somewhat, and we reprioritize this after each sprint, to each sprint planning meeting, and we pick from this what we want to create. And that idea is simple, but we have this mandatory image for requirements, which you probably have all seen already. But the biggest problem with requirements is not how to put them somewhere and work with them, but rather how to get them right. So in this case, we see first what the customer how the customer explained something, and at the lower end what the customer really needed, and that's the idea of Scrum. The customer is unable to provide us with a full picture of what needs to be done because they don't really know. They don't have the clear picture. They know basically what they want, but they have trouble communicating this, and that's why we create our project in small steps instead of one giant. So in order to make this easier, we use user stories of different sizes, and user stories are a way for the customer to explain how well, basically how the user is going to use this software. Because it's a lot easier to try to get the customer to say how to use this rather than trying to list a number of more pure so-called requirements on the project itself. And we have different sizes, fine-grained, ready for sprint backlog, to large stories, to epics that need to be broken down, and so on. And these should be written using the client's terminology, so with the words of the client. They are derived from what's called use cases in UML, but they are quite different from what use cases are, and we'll get to that, but we'll just see here as an example. As a guest, I want to make a reservation. As a guest, I want to cancel a reservation. As a guest, I want to change the date of a reservation. Fairly easy to understand stories that we can implement. And we'll see that these requirements in this way of describing them makes it a bit easier for everyone involved. And as I said, requirements is a communication problem, and the user stories are simple, brief descriptions of functionality. Okay? And they should always be told from the perspective of the user or the customer, so the one, ideally the one who is going to use the system. And we can compare this again with, as I said, use cases, which is a description of interactions between the actors and the systems. However, user stories that we are more interested in are about the needs that we have in the system, where there's use cases about the behavior of the system. So different perspectives on the same thing, where the needs are much easier for the client to describe than the behavior of the system. They are also faster to produce, and they can be produced by the product people, namely those who want this product. If we look at UML and use cases and use case specifications, if you like, they can be quite formal. They have a specific format and so on, and that's quite nice. However, difficult for anyone who is not involved in software development to create. They are later on used for planning and estimations. Not a sequence of actions, but rather users, stories. They are not, well, I'd like to as a guest, I want to be able to make a reservation. And I don't have to say first and then, or I don't have to say that the next user story must be the continuation of that user story, and so on. But what is important is that a user story, to be correctly implemented, has to have an acceptance criteria. So we need to know when it's done. If the user story is, as a guest, I want to be able to make a reservation, we know that this is done when the user has filled in all the required information and the table where they're going to sit has been reserved in the system. We can then tick that one off and say, we're done with this, and move on with the next. They are not meant to document every aspect of the work. Again, if we have a user story like, as a customer, I'd like to be able to reserve a table or whatever it was, but something like that. Then we don't have to specify all the things, because we can go back and we can ask what is needed, well, a name and a phone number and the email perhaps, or something like that. We don't have to specify everything in this single user story, but define it from other parts of the requirements. Therefore, it's important to define and identify different types of users. If it is a system for a restaurant, that could be anyone from, let's say, a tech-savvy teenager up to someone who is not, who's very old and doesn't use technology at all. And you also need to look at the frequency of their using the system, how often do they use them, the level of expertise, and so on. And all of this boils down to understanding the user and to whom we are actually developing this system. And that's important for you as well when you are going to create this system for selling local produce. Who is the customer? Who is going to use this system? What is he or she looking like? Could it be someone like this? When I worked outside, we actually printed out a few of these, namely generic people's images, and put them up on the wall to help remember who might be using the system. And it's not enough just to have one, you need to have all the different types of users. This is Duncan Smith, who's 35 years old and is music studio manager in the UK, who loves soccer and beer and listens to 80s rock, works out at a local gym. I made all of that up, yes, but he does look like his name is Duncan, doesn't he? It's a stock image. But by giving this stock image all of these characteristics, and when I look up on him on the wall and have him in my mind when I design and implement my system, I get a better picture of whom I actually creating this for. So please include Duncan as one of the buyers of the stuff. When creating user stories, as I've said a few times now, it's important to make them have an acceptance criteria. This should be able to tick them off when they're done. Create them so it's possible to understand when they are done. It should be easy to know, well, now everything is in the database and it's done, or whatever it might be. Also avoid vague terms like beautiful user interface and easy to use and fast and responsive and so on, because that's something that's different for different people. Always explain from the viewpoint of a user, and the user could be as a user, as a guest, as an administrator, and so on. So identify the different users of the system, give them a range of persona, and create user stories based on this. Also explain the reason for doing something, so that we have a template like this. As a persona, I want to, so that. And to make it easier, here are a few examples. For a video sharing site, as a creator, I want to upload video from my local machine so that any user can view it. Who is going to do it? What is going to be done? And why? So we know that this one is done when we have uploaded a video and made it publicly available for any other user. As a user, I want to search by keyword to find videos that are relevant to me. And that implies that we need to have keywords for each and every video. And it also implies that we need to store this in a way so that we can search for it. As it says here, we can use something called invest, which is independent, negotiable, valuable, estimable, small, and testable. And if you go for testable, you're going quite long. Bad user stories then. As a developer, I want to improve error logging. Well, that's not going to give any value to the customer. As a product owner, I want this product to kick ass. Yeah. Or all connections to the database go through a connection pool. Nah. So the important thing is the acceptance. So something that defines done for this product. And we have another example just to I think we've said that enough now, but just to make it certain. As a conference and attendee, I want to register online so it's fast and I can cut down on paperwork. So that entails, for example, that a user cannot submit a form without completing all the mandatory fields. Information from the submission is stored in the registration database. Credit card payment should be supported, and an acknowledgement email should be sent to the user after submitting the form. All of that is not visible directly in the user story, but there's something that we need to understand. So even though the user story itself is fairly limited and clear cut, it means that we have quite a few things that we need to do in order to see this as a fit user story, and so that we can tick it off that it is done. And a way to start defining this is to use story points, to look at a user story and define how big it is. And I say how big it is as we will tell you to use points rather than time. So instead of saying that this will take 5 hours to complete, we want you to say that it is a 5 story point story. And that doesn't say very much, really, but a 5 story point user story is more involving and more complicated than a 2 story point, and that is what's important. Yeah, we often use Fibonacci sequence numbers in order to do that. So 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 20, and so on, just to get something. And as we'll see later on, when we get a little bit warm, we can have some sort of velocity, which is the number of story points that we believe that we will be able to do in a specific sprint. So we basically want to know that this is something that is larger than this. And we can do that by planning poker, for example. You can look that up if you like. And why not time? Well, because time estimates vary by person and they encourage a little bit of padding around it. Also, deadlines is difficult because then you try to streamline your work towards the streamline instead of making it done, so to say. So you work towards the deadline instead of completing the user story. But it has been shown that story points are more consistent from person to person. It's no commitment to time frame, and it's at least, at the very least, it's easier to have these relative sizes to see that the logging system is not that complicated as the make reservation part or whatever it might be. The one is larger than the other. But estimations are hard, and user experience, I should say, is probably the way to go here in whatever you try to do. But what you do is sit down and discuss, and you find out that well, these are the things we think will be enough for us to do in one sprint. Try to see user stories as a maximum of 16 hours or 16 story points, or rather the story points could be higher, but things shouldn't take more than 16 hours to do. When all this is done, we put them in the sprint backlog, and this is important, when we have a set of user stories that we want to do, we let the developers assign them to themselves. So we don't, the Scrum Master will never assign work to someone else. He or she will only see to that the different developers pick some work that they can do. And look at this daily, update and modify it if needed. We cannot put in more work, but we might need to divide a user story, or we need to define it, and we need to put in some more work because this meant more than we thought, and so on. And if there is parts that we cannot do, define a sprint backlog and break it down even further and put it back in later on. Yeah, and it could look like something like this. Yeah. And as I said, velocity is about how many many story points we can do in a sprint. And this is not possible to define. And it varies widely between both sprints and teams. So this is something that the people involved organically again get an experience and a knowledge about later on. But somehow try not to take on too much in each sprint. Remember that in a project course like this one, the velocity should be fairly small, both because we just have 1 week to work, and also because we have a lot of other things that we need to do. I mean, this is just one of the courses that you're taking. So, summary, Agile and Scrum is a great way to organize software development. And the basic idea here is to embrace change rather than removing it. Giving you as a developer, a team member, a lot of creative room. And what's good is that it is now widely adopted by industry. And this, of course, makes it important for you to know. It was very disruptive. It did change the landscape, but it is now more or less standard. Is there more to know? Yes, of course there is. But lectures are kind of boring, so therefore practice is king, and that's what we're going to do in this course. But when you do need theory, here's a few URLs where you can have some more information if you like. And if you have a favorite search engine, you can use that to find even more, of course. And that's about it when it comes to Scrum. And we just have a few more slides in which I will talk a little bit about GitLab, which will be the tool that we work with in order to have a common platform where we have all our work. So at the core, GitLab is just Git, and Git is, as you probably know by now, a kind of a version control system where we can save our source code, and this GitLab thing is just a centralized hub around where we can put our code and make our pushes too. And you are going to use this, and GitLab itself has a number of extra tools as its platform, so to say, to make handling Scrum easier. And those are the things that we're going to use. So, just as Lars said previously, when we have divided you into teams, you will get access to gitlab.lnu.se, and you can log in there, and you will get access to a repository for that group, but also the other tools that we're going to look at. But you will be working as a group. So basically, what we are going to say just a few words about here is the work you do in order to not mess up the source code, and how to use Scrum as a tool in GitLab. And we will leave you a lot of freedom on how to use GitLab and Git and so on. There are many strategies available, and you can probably look them up: integration manager, dictator lieutenant, and so on. The important thing is to find a strategy together on how to do it, and we will show you a few things and pointers in how you can do this. If for any reason there's someone who feel a little new to Git and GitLab, we have a series of video lectures and lecture notes on Moodle as well. But what you are going to use quite extensively is branching. And see the master branch as where your final product or final increment will be each sprint. And what you're going to do is, most probably, because you can decide this for yourself, is to just pull everything, create a new branch, and then later on merge that with, for example, master, but perhaps some develop branch in between. But you can decide that for yourselves, and also look at the video series on GitLab. And all of this is basically summarized in this. So begin your day by doing a git pull, check out and create a new branch with perhaps your name or the name of the feature you're going to do. Do all your work, do some adds and commits, then check out master and merge. The merging part I would recommend you doing on GitLab, the web page, and then just push your stuff so that you are up to date. So basically this, and we explain more in the video series. We would recommend that you have master as your let's say working increment each month. So have a branch which you all share, which is called develop, just beneath it, and then each and every one you have your own branch, and you do your work and you merge with the develop, and then you have one person who is responsible of merging develop with the master branch from time to time. And see to that you've merged with master in time for the weekly meetings, so that everything is up to date on master. There are plenty of stuff that could go wrong, so please help each other and see to that no one is left outside. GitLab isn't 100% done for agile work, so we need to do some mappings between the different things that you can do. Much of what we need is actually possible, and I found a rather nice guide over there which you can read. Make adjustments. It's not that strict. It's something that you can work with, but we don't force you into doing it. And we will use GitLab to look at the different things you've done each sprint meeting. And basically what we have is the agile term user story is what we call issues in GitLab. Points and estimates are weights in GitLab. Product backlog is the issue list, possibly with labels. The sprint is a milestone. Burn down chart, well, it's burn down chart. Agile board is the issue board. You can have a look at these as soon as you get access to GitLab. So most of the things that you need to look at are under issues in GitLab. And also remember to customize them in order to match your project. As I said, we create the repositories per group. So when we have you in groups and we have all your usernames, we will create these repositories for each group, and we will probably name them something, group or team 1, team 2, team 3, and so on. And that will be the starting point of your project. Yeah. So when we meet, you select what you would like to do for a sprint, and you assign story points to it, and a person responsible who does not need to do everything, but the one who is responsible for it, and then you start working. With that, we've come to the last slide. You will get a mail from us about the group, and you will get a mail from GitLab, and just start working. But remember that you need to communicate with each other. Within the course, we would like you to use Slack, but you can use any means necessary within your team. If you want to use Discord or Slack or Teams or Facebook groups, yeah, but it's up to you. And as soon as possible, when you get a get-go from us, start using GitLab. And with that, just good luck. This will be a very fun course, and we will get back to you later on in order to see how you should be presenting this in the end. But you'll also get more information from Lars when it comes to how to meet him every week. All right then. This has been the start of the course, and if I've been very fast, it's because I'm all alone in this room now, and it feels kind of sad. But I wish you all good luck with the course, and see you later on. Bye for now. Right, so I thought, stop, let's see. Okay, bye for now.